It's really cool to think about how much history the H3000 has been a part of. I think a lot of people view it as the holy grail of studio effects processes. Hey, my name's Woody. I'm a senior DSP engineer here at Eventide. Today I'm going to be introducing the H3000 Mk II band delays and factory plugins. We spent a lot of time trying to capture the magic of the original hardware units. If you ask any employee at Eventide who's ever worked at a trade show, I think everybody's got a story of someone coming up to them and saying, those H3000s, man, those were magic. Those converters were magic. And for the Mk II versions, we wanted to make sure that we had those spot on.
The dev team spent a lot of time really listening to the unit. We spent hours just tweaking presets and just trying to figure out what really made the unit sound like what it did and making sure that the plugin really captured that.
Answering the question, like, what is the special sauce, always feels risky because I think a lot of the times everybody hears something a little different. But having spent a lot of time looking at the unit, I think there's a few things that are really special about it. One of them has to do with the filters that are being used going into and out of the converters, and one of them has to do with the converters themselves. There are these special filters we've always called them mirada filters, but it's a very steep, high order analog filter that gets used for basically going into the converters as an anti-aliasing filter and then going out of the DAC at the end as a reconstruction filter. And then the converter itself was really cool. I think it was a Sony CX20018, and it was one of the earliest, I think if not the earliest, kind of like standalone single chip analog to digital converter. And that worked in a really cool way where you essentially created a digital signal from the analog signal by counting time. So it actually had to alternate the channels it was converting. You actually introduce a half sample of latency between the two channels. That leads to this kind of stereo image that a lot of people hear. And I think it leads to this great sound that is like kind of just like a little bit wide. Someone once described it almost kind of like an exciter plugin or something. You're hitting that converter just a little harder in the high frequencies. And I think all of those things maybe individually might be a little subtle in certain scenarios, but they kind of come together in this nice way.
Didn't grow up with this box. I've sort of come to know it over the last few years, and I've grown to understand why it was such an important effect. You can do almost anything on the box. You can move any parameter, open any program, and it's just not very difficult to start up the box, try something, and be amazed. And the deeper you go, the more it responds and gives you back that energy. And I think we've done the same thing with the plugins. H3000 Factory has all the same bells and whistles as the mod factory and the patch factory algorithm from the original box. You've got your delays, you have your pitch shifters, which are sort of these nuanced pitch shifters. And if you push it in certain ways, you can even get glitchy effects, just like you could with the original box. So band delays, H3000 band delays Mk II models the band delays algorithm from the original unit. Except this time you can actually see the delays sort of jumping around as you modify them.
You know, these plugins, we put a lot of time into them. We recognize that this is an important part of not just Eventide's history, but music recording history. All the hit records that these things have appeared on, we wanted to make sure that we were giving people a legitimate piece of Eventide history and have it be something that we could say, yeah, this is the H3000. This is the hardware unit that you know and love. It's just more accessible and easier to use than ever.